Hello, everybody. I want to apologize for not posting a video for a while. As far as where I've been, I moved across the country. I got married, bought a house, and had my first baby. So it's been a busy couple years here. One of the things that I was able to do was finish my basement. And so when we moved in, the basement was a blank slate, just the concrete pour. And so I had a vision, and that vision is pretty much complete at this point. And I'm very excited to share a portion of that vision with you today. So this will be me kind of just showing the simulator build and why I did what, why I did certain things where I did them, why I went with certain things over the others, and general functionality. I will make other tutorials about how to use FSX 2020 and a few other pieces of software that they have. We'll play courses, we'll head on the driving range, maybe we'll even do some lessons. But for today, I just want to show you the build. So grab a cup of coffee or some nighttime tea, and away we go. So to start, I'll show you the sim room itself. As you can see over here, I have a bunch of golf clubs. So here are my sticks right now. These are some golf clubs I just mounted to the wall. A couple Mizuno sets, one set of hot metals, and then a set of the MP20 HMBs. So that is actually mounted with some pool cue racks, because golf clubs racks are needlessly expensive, and so I went with cue racks because nice, clean, low profile, and they came in black. So if you look closer, the walls are essentially carpet tiles, like 3/4 inch carpet tiles. And so the room itself is about 13 feet by 13 feet. So the walls on either side are drywalled, and then I just didn't paint them. And there's rooms on either side, which I'll show you in a moment here. The screen itself is about 160 inches. I did have to get the screen custom built, just because for my purposes the room was as big as it was, and so I didn't really have choice there. I also had the floor custom built and then delivered and set everything up, and so the floor is on a 6-degree grade, and so if you putt from back here, you'll have straight putts to these two holes on opposite sides. But if you putt from up here, you can actually give yourself left to right and right to left putts. So you can see there, get a little bit of break, and then you get the opposite on the right side. So get some putting practice in outside of taking cuts in the simulator. The screen itself is designed to show a 4K image, and so it's, there's quite a bit of give to it. And then behind it is an archery net, an everything is on bungee cables. And so I built a wooden frame all the way around. And then up top here is plywood. And of course you have the baffles to cover all the steel scaffolding, and the bungee cables are connected to that. And so there is quite a bit of give. You can see, we're about 1 foot off the wall. And that's the recommendation. You want at least 10 to 12 inches off the wall for your simulator. And then the projector is up there. It's a shorter throw image. It's about 13, 14 feet away from the screen. And so the GC3 is about 10 feet from the screen. And they say that's generally what you want, at least 8 feet away from the screen, just so you don't get any reverberation or anything like that. Though I will say, I have had no issue with balls bouncing back. If I, hit a driver, it might roll back, but I really have had no issues with the trampoline effect. And because the whole floor is 6 degrees, progressionally, the balls do actually kind of roll back to you. And so this mat, you might notice that it's a different color. And so everything is covered in like this emerald green, and that's kind of industry standard putting green. So it rolls very true. I believe it rolls about 11 on the stimp meter. But as far as the strike mat, it has what's called real feel technology. And so if you come over here and you kind of push down, there's quite a bit of give. And so I'll show you. For example, if you put a T in, it grabs the T, and you can tee a ball up. So I've been very, very happy with the real feel mat, because unlike when you hit on range mats, and it's tough to gauge the actual contact with the ball, meaning when the ball meets the club and its interaction with the actual turf mat, there's a lot of trampoline effect off, your average mats that you see on driving ranges. So what's nice about this is if you chunk a ball, you're going to feel it. And so if you hit a poor shot on this mat, it means you would have hit a poor shot in real life. And so it's not perfect, but it's going to give you much more feedback than what you'd get from your standard range mat. And as far as longevity, as far as turf wear, this mat supposedly does a much better job over time. So that remains to be seen, but according to the manufacturer, that is what they claim. So if we look up at the ceiling, you'll notice that I did not finish the ceiling, and a lot of it had to do with height. So we have about 9-foot ceilings to the joist. It's roughly 8 feet 5 inches. So I cut out about 4 inches into the joist. I had a structural engineer over here, and he blessed doing that. And so just those couple right there to give a little bit more room. I cut down a driver. I can swing driver. I'm 5'11", but some of my friends cannot. And so I cut down a couple drivers, and they're down to about hybrid length. And so at first I cut a stiff shaft driver, because that's all I had. And then a couple buddies of mine gave me the regular shafted old drivers from when they were younger, and I cut them creates a stiff shaft by cutting it down 5 or so inches. And I will say, cutting a driver down 5 inches will reduce your yardage by about 50 yards, but you can still get a good poke out there. And at the end of the day, I really just want to be able to practice ball striking and improve with my irons. Really kind of learn what my carry distances are with all my clubs, and so I didn't really mind not being able to swing full driver down here, because the alternative would have been to dig, and it ended up not being possible because we have plumbing down there coming from the bathroom behind this wall. But even if we didn't, it would have been about $14,000 to $20,000 to dig down about 1 to 2 feet, which hardly seemed worth it to hit driver. And so, for all the driver questions I have, I bring the GC3 out to the driving range, and it'll give me all the same data on the range that it would in here. So getting back to the ceiling, you'll see that I have a spotlight that I installed directly over the strike area. And so that is giving some guidance as to where to put your ball, and to kind of give you an idea of how bright that is. If I turn off the lights behind me and I turn this on, it does a pretty good job of lighting up the area. So when we're playing, I'll leave lights on over here. We'll leave some golf on, and it's pretty bright. So if we look up, again, you'll see that there are speakers there, and the surrounds are back there. So I installed a 5.1 packaged Klipsch surround sound. So eventually when the little guy's older and the kids are down here, we can just kind of leave them in here and let them play and maybe watch a movie, a toy store or whatever. And I will say it sounds pretty good for a 10-inch subwoofer. It packs a punch. It is wired, so I did wire everything, and I'll show you my rig room in a moment, but all the wiring goes behind this wall to a receiver, and then it's all hooked into my PC. So this is a touchscreen monitor, and so you can see if we bring up the driving range. To connect the device, but everything that I'm selecting will show up on the screen. So I have dual monitors essentially running to my computer. One of those monitors is the touchscreen, and then the other is the projector. Get out of that. Now, you can toggle whatever yardage you want in the range. We'll do, say, 150. And then you can hit away. And what's nice is when you set up the foresight in the GC3, and you download their software, you can actually tell the software where your launch monitor is relative to the size of your room, and so you can see the aim line is not quite centered on the screen, and that's because if it were, you wouldn't be putting directly to the line. So on a putt, you'd want to putt directly to that line on a straight putt. And it helps tremendously when, buddies are over and hitting balls, and eventually it gets to putting, and it kind of confuses people when you tell them to putt, a foot and a half to the right of the center. And so this way, you can ensure that if they don't make the putt, it's their fault, not the simulator. And so, to get a little bit more technical, I went with the Panasonic BMZ 50U. It is a WUXGA projector, meaning that I can throw a 16 by 10 image, because the way the wall is shaped and the way the screen is sized, 16 by 10 made a lot more sense. And so this is a very capable little business projector. It's small, it's lightweight, it is native 1080p, but it can upscale 4K, and it can accept a 4K signal at 30 frames per second, which is perfect. Eventually I do plan on upgrading to a 4K projector and upgrading my